Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with a look at the market for the week ending April 6th, 2018. And before we can go further, let's read the disclaimer. I urge you to do so and to realize that this is not a video offering any advice or investment counseling. It's simply for educational purposes. And now we can start by looking at some charts. Well, this weekend I thought that we would start with looking at some charts of the international markets. We did this some time ago, but here's a weekly chart of Australia. The ETFs I'm going to look at, and so this is one of Australia weekly chart. You can see that just as the U.S. market broke down at the end of January, this market also continued. This also broke down at the end of January. And so it's still looking for a bottom here. If we look at another chart, let's take a look at EWJ, which is the Japanese market. Very, very similar. So if there's any question about, if we had any question about the correlation of these markets or the globalization of these markets, we can see it looking very clear here that they are all related. Look at Brazil. It's not as pronounced, but very similar in many ways. EWG, which is Germany, you can see the same sort of pattern. EWC, which is Canada, it's a very similar pattern. And I think that's an idea that gives us an idea of where we are relative to the international markets. They are related, they are correlated with each other, very much so. So let's look at some indices now. And here's a weekly chart of the S&P 500. Last week we looked at this. I said it seems to me we had a bullish harami here. We had this doji, small-bodied doji, and it was engulfed by this previous candle. So that was a bullish harami. Well, this week we ended up slightly lower at 2604, and we have another doji with a small body, and that is also engulfed by this candle. When we take a look at the parabolic, we can see that the parabolic is still above the most recent bar, and that says to us that the trend is still down on the weekly chart. We do have this ABCD triangle, which has not come close to playing itself out in any kind of upward movement. We had a target of 3,094, 3094 on the S&P from this triangle here, but we can't talk about targets on the upside now until we see what happens with this consolidation that seems to be going on here. It seems as though we're trying to find support at the 50-day moving average. This magenta line, if I open it up a bit, you can see that we're just about hitting that magenta line, and hopefully that's the 50-week moving average. Hopefully we'll find support there, but that's just a hope. We have to wait and see how it plays out. Looking at RSI 12, we are now below the 40% line at 39.97. Let's see, Williams percent R below the 50% line. These are all bearish indications that this market can go somewhat lower before we see any kind of a bottom. And at the bottom of the chart, the sum of the rate of change indicator has not crossed above the 4% line. So folks, we still have a lot of uncertainty here. I'm not going to get into the politics and the statements and the tweets and all that stuff, because we all know what's going on there, and it may be affecting the market, but we can only take a look at the charts and see what we can glean from them. I'm in no way able to interpret any of that stuff, So let's take a look at the another index. Here's a weekly chart of the Dow Jones. Well, there's some correlation between the Dow Jones and the S&P, of course. And so we're seeing that 50-week moving average right here. We hope to hold at that 50-week moving average. What I'm seeing here is that we are trading within this range of 25 23,797. This is on the Dow now, and 23,360. If we break below that 23,360 level, or somewhere around 2,300 at least, there's a lot more pain below. I don't expect us to do that, but that's a real possibility the way this market is looking. There's a real possibility we could break further down and break below that 50-week moving average. Let's take a look at the Nasdaq. Here's a weekly chart of the QQQ, one of the ETFs on the Nasdaq. I drew what could be a flag here. Of course, that would be nice if it turns out to be a flag that marked a continuation of this trend, but we are not there yet. In fact, on the negative side of things, we can see that the parabolic now shifted above the most recent bar, last week's bar on the Nasdaq. So this is not looking good. And we do have that 50-week moving average right here, that magenta line. So we better hold above that 50-week moving average, or we can expect more pain. Look at the other indicators. RSI 12 is just above the 40% line. Williams percentile broke below the 50% line. MACD is trending down below the zero line. That's bearish. And we just broke below the 4% line. So there's a lot more work to be done to get back up to where we would hope we would break above this level here, for example, on the Nasdaq would be, on the QQQ, would be 175. So let's take a look at some individual. So in summary, there's still a lot of concern here with this market. What am I doing? I started nibbling at a few stocks again, but not taking big positions at all, just much smaller positions than I would, because I'm expecting a turnaround. I could be dead wrong on that, but I'm expecting a turnaround and finding support at the 50-week moving average at least. But if I'm wrong, then at least I won't get hurt that much, because I'm not taking very big positions, buying just a few stocks and a small position. Before we look at the individual stocks, let's take a peek at the best choice chart on the S&P. What is clear here is that this market has been oversold for quite a while, and it is still very oversold. What I would like to do is to show, this is where it is now. It's at an extreme of 1.7, which is very oversold. Let me bring up a 1-year chart, and you will see, in this case here, you would see that whenever we get to that 10% line, we tend to have a rally up. We have that extended rally here from August of last year all the way up to this very overbought region. So let's take a look at a 2-year chart. On a 2-year chart, we'll see more of those instances where when we get to this oversold level, we tend to rally up. When we get to this very oversold level, we tend to rally up. And the same thing here. And again here. And now we are very, very oversold. So I am anticipating that it won't be long before we see a rally from here. But I could be dead wrong or broke wrong. Let's go and look at some individual stocks now. Here's a weekly chart of Apple. First thing that I would note is that this is trading within a range here. I'll show it to you on a daily chart. It's clearer there. But just like with the S&P, we had this bearish bar 3 weeks ago, and then we have two dojis. That's what we saw with the S&P. So Apple pretty much tracks the rest of the market, or vice versa. Parabolic is below the most recent bar. So the bulls seem to have an edge here. Let's put it that way. The RSI 12 is above 40, and Williams is holding a little bit above 50% line. And MACD, the bears are weaker here than they were over here, so that's encouraging from the bullish standpoint. And we still don't have this some of the rate of change indicator above 4%, but it's pretty close. So all in all, Apple seems to be holding its own. I haven't bought any back because I'm not trying to call the bottom or the top. I'm trying to take a good size of the trend when it begins to trend again. Let's take a look at something else. Here's a weekly chart of Facebook. As we know, the problems they've been encountering, and Zuckerberg is supposed to testify pretty soon before Congress. So what we have are these small dojis, small body dojis here, a hammer here, and another doji here. So there's some uncertainty. I am not buying it here. I would like to see some confirmation of a trend. So that's Facebook. I mentioned that I'm nibbling at a couple of stocks. Again, well, here's one, Adobe. I've been buying I bought a small percentage of what I would like to own, and it seems to be holding its own here. So I'm encouraged by that. I'm in the red, but I'm encouraged by what I see here. You see the other indicators, RSI 12 above 60, Williams percentile, one of my favorite indicators, way above 50%, so I like that. MACD, no divergence, and I like some of the rate of change indicator, quite a bit above 4%. It's now at very much above 4%. So I like Adobe, and I own a little bit of it. A weekly chart of Visa, and this is one I like a lot. I don't own it right now. I was expecting a move to the target of this triangle here, but it hasn't been doing that. It may be a good time to start looking at it again because we have this bullish harami and we have another doji here. Parabolic is positive. We're above 40% here, above 50% here. So I'd like to see MACD start trending up a little bit. But all in all, it seems as if Visa can be owned here. Although I'm going to start taking a look as wanting to get back into Visa. Here's a stock that I took a little bit of a position in last week. Number of reasons for that. It was highlighted by the folks at stockcharts.com, and it started a nice uptrend here last week, and so I bought some. Except for Friday, it was doing pretty well all week long. You can see the other indicators looking pretty bullish. RSI 12 trending up from the 40% line. Williams percentile also looking good. MACD in bullish territory, and I like the fact that some of the rate of change is above the 4% line. So I like this one. I bought a little bit of it. I'm going to hold it for a little while, see how it goes. Here's a stock that my friend Laura mentioned to me. Took a look at it. I like what I see. It's consolidating here within this range, and it hasn't really had a big pullback from the end of January, which is here. It had this pullback, but since then it's recovered nicely. And this is a weekly chart. And if you look at the bottom of the chart here, you will see that parabolic is below the most recent bar, and all the other indicators here in pretty good territory. Don't have much time to discuss it here now, but you can see that. You get the gist of it. RSI 12, Williams percentile. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. I may be looking to buy some. We'll see how it goes. Here's a stock I looked at some time ago called, it's CRISPR Therapeutics, biotech, a lot of research on DNA and other genetic factors. Had a nice rally here and now pulled back into the buy zone between the 9 and the 30. It's risky, as all biotechs are. However, this brings us to the end. We only have a few seconds left. Want to say, hope you had a good weekend. And let's hope that the market brings us some more fortune this coming week than it has last week. And could we shut down the tweeting a little bit? Thank you.